Well, hello everybody and welcome back. Welcome to episode 59 of the Unstoppable Entertainment Show, the most comprehensive entertainment news show on the internet. I am, of course, Nate Schaffner, otherwise known as the Unstoppable Nate. I hope you guys enjoyed the show, the last episode. I am back. This will be my second show today, and then I'm going to do one more tomorrow. Give you guys a little break from me rambling. But this will be my second episode today. Hope you guys enjoyed the last show. Got a lot to talk about. A lot I want to talk about in this episode. But before I get started, as always, if you like this show, go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, spread the word. Also, if you have a comment, a question, or if you'd like me to talk about certain movies or franchises, you can email me anytime at the address listed in the description of this video. So with that out of the way, I want to get started here. One of the, purposes of me, one of the things I wanted to do with this show when I first started is not only talk about upcoming movie announcements, casting and things like that, but also talk about things that are going on within the industry, like behind the scenes, stuff like that. And I wanted to talk about this for a second. So for those who don't know, there's negotiations going on between the Actors Union, SAG-AFTRA, and the AMPTP, that's the film studios. And they've entered into primary. They've entered into primary negotiations. Now, before I delve into what this article says, for those who don't know, or maybe aren't aware, the film industry has yet to recover from the 1-2 punch of the COVID pandemic and the writers and actors strikes. From a couple of years ago. And those two things really crippled the industry. I mean, it's starting to recover, but it's not quite there yet. Now, this article is on The Hollywood Reporter, published by Katie Kilkenny. I just want to read this here. Now, I should point out that this article was published on March 15th. And this article says, Hollywood's waiting game isn't over yet, as SAG-AFTRA and studios failed to reach a deal on Sunday, the final day of their primary negotiations period. The negotiations over the union's next 3-year deal covering film and TV work are now set to continue later this spring, ahead of the contract's June 30th expiration. SAG-AFTRA had previously scheduled this backup period for additional talks in case their first didn't yield an agreement. Now, this article does go on to say, SAG-AFTRA and the AMPTP, that's the studios, completed productive bargaining sessions, including going several days beyond what was originally planned. Excuse me. While we will continue ongoing conversations, formal negotiations will resume later this spring as planned, before the current contract expires June 30th, SAG-AFTRA and the AMPTP said in a joint statement on Sunday. Sunday. I'm optimistic about this. I'm more optimistic than I was the last time this happened, because especially, well, the 1-2 punch of the COVID pandemic and the writer and actor strikes, that was devastating. And I think both sides, meaning both the Actors Union, SAG-AFTRA, and the studios, they realize that if another strike happened, that would destroy the industry. I think they both realize that. At least I hope they both realize that. So I'm optimistic about them being able to negotiate. I don't think another strike will happen. I do know that, AI continues to be an ongoing issue, not only in the film industry, but just in general. So there is that. But, I don't think that another strike will happen. I'm optimistic about this. But I just wanted to offer my brief, and again, they're going to enter into more negotiations this spring. The contract expires June 30th. They have plenty of time. Excuse me. And, I just think they'll enter into negotiations again, and everything will be worked out. I highly doubt it's going to turn out the way it did last time. But anyway, I just wanted to offer my brief thoughts on this, and I have minimal knowledge at best about this kind of thing, but I just wanted to offer my thoughts on what I do know. If you have any comments or questions about this, let me know, and I'll try to answer them the best I can. But I just wanted to talk briefly about that. Moving on here, I think it's safe to say that recently there have been several video game to film adaptations that have actually been really, really good. You have the Sonic the Hedgehog movies. There's, the Fallout TV series, Last of Us. If you get people who care about the material, if you get the right creative people involved, this stuff can actually, video game to film and TV adaptations can actually be really good. And it evidently there will be more. This article is on The Hollywood Reporter, published by Tony Maglio. And this article says, says that Vice Studios, the banner behind Gangs of London, has partnered with Starbreeze Entertainment to bring the long-running first-person shooter franchise Payday to the screen in non-gaming formats, the Hollywood Reporter has learned. So Vice Studios has secured the global rights to adapt the Payday video games for TV and film. This article does go on to say, let's see. The game's masked protagonists have proven that no score is too audacious, no enemy too powerful, and no fortune enough to stop their criminal ambitions. The studios describe the content of their moneymaker. The cinematic heists mix high-octane action in exciting heist locations with stories about betrayal, conspiracy, and corruption. Payday has a world that is bigger than the game itself, said Amy Powell, president of Vice Studios. There's mythology behind the masks and a crew of characters with real history that is incredibly exciting to explore. Partnering with Starbreeze Entertainment, we're excited to build that universe and see how far it can go on screen. Okay, so we're getting Payday video game and TV shows. The one thing that I will say, and this is kind of a double-edged sword, is we've seen first-person video games adapted into film before with Doom, and we all know how that turned out. Now, that being said, there is more. There is a cinematic element to Payday, which I think could lend itself well to film and TV adaptations. So there is that. To be honest with you, I'm more looking forward to the films than a TV series. But who knows, it could work out well for both, or maybe it could work out well one way or the other. I don't know, but I'm given the recent history of video game to film and TV adaptations, I'm optimistic about this. And like I said, there's more of a cinematic element to Payday. I'm not too familiar with the video games though. So it'll be interesting to see how they're adapted. I might have to familiarize myself with those video games. But yeah, so we'll see what happens. Hopefully it turns out more like Fallout and Last of Us, and less like Uncharted. So jump to the comment section and let me know your thoughts. Have any of you played Payday? The Payday video games. What do you guys think about Payday video games being adapted to film and television? Jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts. Moving on here, one of my favorite genres of film is the erotic drama or the erotic thriller. Mostly because I think it can be very provocative material and very very controversial material. Like in my mind, if something stirs up controversy, I want to experience it. Ooh, what's so controversial about it? I want to see for myself. There's a director by the name of Paul Verhoeven who directed the Arnold Schwarzenegger Total Recall. He directed the original RoboCop. And he also directed he also directed Basic Instinct with Michael Douglas and Sharon Stone, which it's a decent film, but the material in it, I can understand why it was controversial when it came out. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I understand it. I can understand why it was controversial, I should say. Again, I don't necessarily agree with it. But Paul Verhoeven, the director of those movies, has been very open about erotic dramas, erotic thrillers, and sexuality on screen. and he's been very open about the fact that, you know, American film audiences, we are very entertained by incredibly violent movies, but when it comes to, you know, a breast being shown or full frontal nudity, everybody seems to freak the hell out, you know, and he's not wrong, and you know, we can enjoy movies like John Wick, but you know, when it comes to sexuality being explored on screen, you know, it seems to be a controversial subject, which I've always found mystifying, to be honest with you. So the reason I say all that is because there's this new erotic drama coming, starring one of my favorite actresses. This article is on Deadline, published by Melanie Goodfellow. Let's see here. Okay. Oh dear. Oh dear. Okay. Matthias Schoenaerts from Rust and Bone, Makita Samba from Paris and 13th District, and Martin Sokas from The Equalizer have joined Halle Berry in Fleur, that's Fleur, as filming begins in Paris this week. So this article was published on March 18th. So this movie is filming right now. Halle Berry stars as a New York housewife who flees the U.S. and her husband of 30 years, played by Martin Sokas, to reinvent herself in Paris as Fleur, an upscale escort and dominatrix, carving out her own power and identity. As her past collides with her new life, the question isn't just whether she'll return, but whether she can. Cameroonian-American filmmaker and novelist Elie Foumbi wrote the screenplay. Foumbi wrote the screenplay and directs. It is her second feature after France-set thriller Our Father the Devil, which premiered in Venice in 2021. Okay, so this sounds really interesting and really kind of thought-provoking. You know, this housewife who leaves the country and her husband to reinvent herself as a dominatrix. Excuse me, and then her past life collides with her new one. I think is really interesting. You know, interesting fact about me. I have actually met a dominatrix, and by met I mean had a conversation with. You know, and we met through a mutual friend, and you know, it was we talked about, like, I was very interested in learning about, you know, like what's the appeal, like what's in it when you are a dominatrix, what's in it for you, what's in it with your whoever you're in this relationship with, like what's the appeal of it. And it was a very interesting conversation to have, and it was I've met a dominatrix, and you know, this I think there's I think this could be really a thought-provoking film. You know, this again, this woman who seeks a new life to pursue power and reinvent herself with a new identity, and then her past life catches up with her, and whether or not she even can return to her past life. You know, she's delved so deeply into this identity as a dominatrix. Is she even capable of going back to who she once was? That's very interesting to me. And again, it explores sexuality. So I'm not too familiar with the cast. Martin Sokaz, he played the villain in the first Equalizer movie with Denzel Washington, which is a really good film. It's a really good film, and he was great. He was very believable and formidable as the villain to Denzel Washington. I'm not familiar with the director, Eli Fawombi. I have heard of the film Our Father the Devil, but I haven't seen it. So I'm not familiar with Eli Fawombi. But this film sounds interesting. It really, it sounds like it might ruffle some feathers. It might stir up controversy, which I'm always interested in. But yeah, so it just sounds very interesting to me. So jump in the comment section and let me know what you guys think about this movie and the fact that Halle Berry is going to star this. I love Halle Berry. Halle Berry is one of my favorite actresses. Everything going back to Monsters Ball, she won the Oscar, and then even before that she was Storm in the X-Men movies, and I mentioned the John Wick movies. She was great in John Wick 3. She was awesome. She's a fantastic actress. So jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts about this. All right, so moving on here. I think I mentioned an episode or two ago that there's going to be this live-action Scooby-Doo series on Netflix that is going to star McKenna Grace as Daphne. And there's been more casting news regarding that series. This article is on Deadline, published by Nelly Andriva. Let's see here. Netflix has assembled the human part of Mystery Inc., the amateur sleuthing gang at the heart of Scooby-Doo. Tanner Hagen from The Pit and Dark Light will play Shaggy Rogers. Abby Ryder Fortson from Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, and Carousel will portray Velma Dinkley. And Maxwell Jenkins from Lost in Space and The Bondsman is set as Fred Jones in the untitled Scooby-Doo live-action series, joining previously cast McKenna Grace as Daphne Blake. Okay. So, I'm not too familiar with this cast. Tanner Hagen, I think... So Tanner Hagen was on The Pit. I love that show. That show's great. I believe Abby Ryder Fortson was on that show too. I am a couple episodes behind, but I believe Abby Ryder Fortson was on The Pit as well. She was also in the second. She played Cassie in the second Ant-Man movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and she was adorable in that movie. I mean, she was funny and adorable, and she was great starring alongside Evangeline Lilly and Paul Rudd. I'm not familiar with Maxwell Jenkins. He's going to play Fred. I have two concerns about this. Excuse me just a second. Sorry, I'm a little stuffy today. I hope I'm not getting too sick. I have two concerns about this. One, I think I mentioned on the last episode that I talked about this. I'm concerned that it's going to be live action because Scooby-Doo has been done in live action before, and it didn't turn out so well. So I have concerns about that. My other concern, and maybe it's not a valid concern. In my mind, McKenna Grace is, first of all, she's wonderful. I love her. In my mind, McKenna Grace is the most, among this cast, McKenna Grace is the most well-known and the most famous. And I wonder, I'm curious as to whether, because of that, it will show on screen. Like, I wonder if because she's so popular, because she's the most well-known of this cast, I wonder if that will cause her to maybe unconsciously, but like I wonder if like when viewers watch this show, because McKenna Grace is so popular and the most famous, if the other cast members will be outshined by her, because the other cast is not as well known as she is. Not necessarily that she's a better actress than any of the cast members, but just because of her popularity. I wonder if I'm curious about that. I wonder about that. Maybe it's an invalid concern. I don't know. I just wonder that because she's so well known that the other cast members will be outshined. But she's wonderful, so yeah, I have concerns about this, but you know what? I love Scooby-Doo. I don't care. I'm 41 years old. I love Scooby-Doo. Sue me. But yeah, I have concerns. I have a couple of concerns about this, but ultimately I hope it's good. I do know that the show... Here's the other concern I have. The show is going to be... It's going to be kind of... it's going to be kind of an origin story about how Mystery Inc. got together and teamed up to crack their first case. Like, is anybody interested in that? I wonder about that. I hope it's good. I hope it's good because I love Scooby-Doo. Who doesn't? So jump to the comment section and let me know your thoughts about that, about Netflix Scooby-Doo series. All right, so you might recall, moving on here, I think it was a couple episodes ago, I talked about this. There's this horror movie from Takashi Miike that's going to star Norman Reedus and Millie Alcock. Millie Alcock is the new Supergirl. And there's been more casting news regarding that movie This article is on Deadline, published by Andreas Weissman. This article says that Haley Benton Gates, who recently starred with Charlie XCX in A24 Studios' The Moment, and she's also going to be, there's this new movie called The Drama with Robert Pattinson and Zendaya. This article does say that Haley Benton Gates is in that movie as well. She has joined the cast of this Takashi Miike horror film. So there's that piece of news. I'm not familiar with Haley Benton Gates, so I don't have much to offer. I will say that this is the second movie that Haley Benton Gates is in where she stars alongside Charlie XCX. You know, Charlie XCX is going to be in this Takashi Miike horror movie. So there is that. They're reuniting, and you know, I am interested. I am interested in this movie, The Drama, with Robert Pattinson and Zendaya. It's getting great reviews so far. I am interested in seeing it. And she's going to be in that. So I knowing that she's reuniting with Charlie XCX, and knowing that she's going to be in this upcoming movie, it comes out this weekend, I think, The Drama. And it's getting great reviews so far. So knowing that, I'm looking forward to this movie. You know, Millie Alcock, you know, her star is rising thanks to Supergirl. Norman Reedus is going to be in it. I love him. So other than that, I'm sorry I don't have much to offer, but I will say that according this film has started filming. They are filming now in Kyoto, I believe. So that's exciting. So I'm looking forward to seeing this film. So I just wanted to offer that little bit of casting news. Jump in the comment section and let me know what you guys think about this. Are you interested in The Drama? You know, are you familiar with Haley Benton Gates? Have you seen The Moment, which starred her and Charlie XCX? Jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts. Okay. So this next bit of news is interesting. You know, and I say this as someone, look, I'm always talking about how I'm studying all different kinds of films from different time periods, you know, and I'm watching them and learning more about the industry. And I think without a doubt, one of the greatest actresses of all time is Jane Fonda. I love Jane Fonda. You know, she was in, there's a movie that she did in, I think it was 1979. Was it 1979? Yeah. With Michael Douglas and Jack Lemmon, called The China Syndrome. And it's great. It's great. And then, obviously, 9 to 5. I love 9 to 5. 9 to 5 is so good. It's so good. And then on Golden Pond, which she starred alongside her father, Henry Fonda. Oh no, I'm sorry. Was it On Golden Pond? Yeah, on Golden Pond with Henry and Jane Fonda and Kate Hepburn, Catherine Hepburn. And then, God, Barbarella. I mean, come on, Barbarella's awesome. And what else was she in? God, she's great. She's great. She was in the original Fun with Dick and Jane. She's great. And you know what's also great about her is that she's maintained relevancy, which I think can be I think there are actors and actresses and filmmakers who have a hard time, if you're from a certain era, you can have a hard time staying relevant. And Jane Fonda has done that. I love Jane Fonda, and she's completely gorgeous, and she is going to be in. It has been announced that she's going to be in a film that is based on a novel. This article is on Screen Rant, published by Adam Bentz. This article says Jane Fonda is officially starring in a new adaptation of the best-selling sleeper hit novel, The Correspondent, after Lionsgate won a 7-studio bidding war. Let's see here. This article does go on to say, according to its synopsis, The Correspondent centers on the unforgettable Sybil Van Antwerp, a sharp-witted, fiercely opinionated, retired lawyer who has long used letters to impose order on a complicated world, writing to friends, family, literary icons, and one elusive recipient whose message she has never sent. But when an unexpected letter from her past resurfaces, Sybil is forced to confront a long-buried chapter of grief, regret, and unresolved guilt. So this sounds interesting. I think I hope that I'm not speaking out of turn, but being sharp-witted and fiercely, the Sybil Van Antwerp is described as sharp-witted and fiercely opinionated, and I think those two characteristics apply to Jane Fonda as well, and I mean that in the best way. And that's one of the reasons why I love her. And this idea, she writes to friends, family, and her idols, and a letter from her past, and she's forced to confront a long buried chapter of her life. That sounds interesting, and with maybe there can be. I think this sounds, and again, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but I think this is an interesting role for Jane Fonda to play at this point in her career and in her life. She's had a very solid career and she's lived a really good life, and I think she could apply, not really apply, but like, I think there are certain aspects of this character that she could apply to herself as well, and get a little method with it. You know, this idea of confronting, you know, or this idea of realizing, you know, yeah, I've there are things that I need to, not necessarily in Jane Fonda's life, but like I mean in terms of like, I'm having trouble here, but like it says here that Sybil is forced to confront a long buried chapter of grief, regret, and unresolved guilt. I think that when you've had such a good and long career as Jane Fonda has had, there are things that possibly she can look back on and be like, yeah, I was kind of stupid when I did that, you know, or I feel guilty about, you know, there are things that we all feel at a certain point in our lives. You know, yeah, I do feel badly about that, or yeah, I do feel kind of shitty about when I did that. And again, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but that combined with the fiercely opinionated and sharp-witted, you know, I think this is going to be a great character for Jane Fonda to play. And I love Jane Fonda, like I said, and I think this could be you know, and she's producing this movie as well. And you know, for her to star in a movie like this, I think it says a lot about her. You know, I think this could be good. You know, and it sounds like there's similarities between Jane Fonda and this character Sybil. You know, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but I love the fact that I personally think that there are similarities between the two people. You know, and I love this. So I hope it's good. I hope it doesn't go too cliche. You know, with the whole past coming back to haunt her kind of thing. And seeing as how it's Jane Fonda, I don't think she would get involved in this project if she thought there were cliches in it. You know, but yeah, you know, this sounds really interesting, and it sounds like a wonderful piece of work for Jane Fonda to be involved in. So jump in the comment section and let me know what you guys think about this. Okay, so moving on here. In the category of why, the Minecraft movie is getting a sequel. Now, I say that, but if I'm right, the movie made $961 million. And I think I said this last time, but I actually have a former coworker of mine who was legitimately pissed off that of all the movies to make that amount of money, film audiences chose to go see that movie. Like, he basically was criticizing film audiences for allowing a Minecraft movie to be that successful. I've seen a Minecraft movie. I am inclined to agree that that movie didn't deserve to make $961 million. I will keep my mouth shut about the rest. But anyway. So, a Minecraft movie is getting a sequel. And there's been some casting announcements. There's been a casting announcement regarding that movie. This article is on Deadline, published by Matt Grovar. This article says that Kirsten Dunst has joined the cast of the untitled Minecraft movie sequel from Warner Brothers Pictures and Legendary Entertainment. Dunst will play Alex, one of the primary avatars available to players of the Minecraft video games from Mojang Studios, on which the films are based. Excuse me. She joins a cast that includes the returning Jason Momoa, Jack Black, Danielle Brooks, Matt Berry, and Jennifer Coolidge. Okay. Two things. One, I hope that this movie is better than the first one. I hope it's infinitely better. The other thing, I really, really like Kirsten Dunst as an actress. Have I seen everything she's in? No. Is she an actress that I rush out to go to see everything that she's in? No. She is too good to be in a movie like this. She is too good to be in a movie like this. I mean, come on. Now, she is at a point, she hasn't really done much recently. And the stuff, she's been very picky and choosy. Not that that's a good or bad thing, but she's been very picky about the kinds of material that she's been doing. She was in this movie a couple years back called Civil War, which is great. She plays this war photographer. And she's great in the movie. Kirsten, I cannot say this enough. She is at a point in her career where she can do anything she wants. She can choose whatever projects she wants to be in. And maybe, look, who am I to judge? Who am I to ask why this movie? Who am I to ask that? I'm just a film goer. I'm just a fan. Okay? And maybe she's just like, doing a movie with Jason Momoa and Jack Black. Fuck it, I'll do it. Shit, this movie's gonna make a boatload of cash. Fuck yeah, I'll do it. Maybe that's what she thought. I don't know. But like, this is the same actress, and look, I can already hear people going, yeah, but she was in those Spider-Man movies. Listen, those Spider-Man movies are great, and she's one of the reasons why. Okay, shut up. Those movies are awesome. This is the same actress who was in Civil War. This is the same actress who was in, I think it was Melancholia, The Virgin Suicides, which is unbelievable. She is too good to be in this movie. But she's probably getting a pretty good paycheck out of it too. You know, look, all I can say is I am sure that she is going to be fantastic and I am sure that she will be fantastic in this movie. I am fairly certain, and I hope that I'm wrong. I'm fairly certain that this movie is going to be terrible. I hope I'm wrong. But, and again, who am I to ask, hey Kirsten, why did you do this movie? Who am I to ask that? I'm just a fan. I'm just a film goer. But all I can offer is my thoughts, and my thoughts are: I hope a Minecraft movie sequel is better than the first one, and that on paper, and the other thought is that Kirsten Dunst is too good to be in a movie like this. You know, and maybe this movie will be good and actually deserve to make $1 billion. Who knows? Anyway, Kirsten Dunst, a Minecraft movie sequel. Your thoughts? Go. So yeah. I wanted to talk about a couple more things, and unfortunately, one of them was the death of Chuck Norris. I am somebody. I was a fan of Chuck Norris. Look, there are numerous Chuck Norris jokes which I've read he absolutely adored. You know, I grew up watching Walker, Texas Ranger, and I loved that show, and he was great on that show. I think he was, you know, I used to watch. I used to be an avid fan of professional wrestling. Not so much anymore, but he was, I guess, I remember he was a special outside enforcer headlining one of the WrestleManias. I think it was WrestleMania 11. But he was that, and he was like an outside referee and like a special enforcer at WrestleMania, which was pretty cool. You know, I mean, Chuck Norris, you know, at WrestleMania. And then I will say, seeing him in Expendables 2, you know, there's that great action sequence, you know, Sylvester Stallone and all the other guys are getting pinned down by the bad guys, and then the bad guys get wiped out by this mysterious shooter. They all get wiped out. And then the smoke as the smoke clears, you see Chuck Norris just the smoke parts, and Chuck Norris appears and he takes the sunglasses off, and it's just it's so awesome, it's so badass. And I love the fact that there was a Chuck Norris joke in the Expendables 2. You know, Sylvester Stallone, you know, Barney asks him, you know, I heard you got bit by a cobra, you know, and Chuck Norris, his character says, yeah, I did, but after several agonizing days of pain, the cobra died. You know, and I was a fan of Chuck Norris, and you know, he he looked really, he was 86 years old, and he looked fantastic. I think the day before he died, he was rushed to the hospital for something, and then it happened, and now it's fun to imagine, but do I realistically think that Chuck Norris could have, people think that Chuck Norris could have beaten Bruce Lee. No, there's no fucking way Chuck Norris could have beaten Bruce Lee. It's fun to imagine. It's fun to imagine how. It's fun to. What's the word I'm looking for? It's fun to imagine the. I'm having trouble finding the right word, but like it's fun to over. I don't know where I'm going with this. I don't know what word I'm trying to use, but like realistically, yeah. Anyway, I wanted to read. There was one Chuck Norris joke. There will there was one Chuck Norris joke that I wanted to read. There was a couple that I wanted to read, and I say this in jest because he will be dearly missed. But there were a couple Chuck Norris jokes that I wanted to read. One is this: Death once had a near Chuck Norris experience, which I thought was hilarious. And then the other one was, if Chuck Norris had been awake when death came for him, there would have been an obituary for death. He was Chuck Norris was awesome. He was he was a legit martial artist. He held black belts in karate, taekwondo, and judo, in addition to other martial arts. He was. He played the villain in The Way of the Dragon with Bruce Lee. It's interesting. It's ironic that he was in so many action films, considering how much of a pacifist he was. I mean, he really was kind of, violence. He really was the embodiment of, okay, use violence in self-defense only. I mean, he was the epitome of that. So it's ironic that he was in so many action films. But I just wanted to say a few words about Chuck Norris and yeah, he'll be missed, and he was in great shape too. I mean, I hope I look that good when I'm 86. But someone who grew up watching Walker Texas Ranger, He was awesome. Okay. Moving on. Chuck Norris. Oh, his cameo in Dodgeball. Thank you, Chuck Norris. Thank you, Peter. All right, so one last bit of news here that I want to talk about. Actually, a couple. So there's this. I want to make sure I get this right. There's a series of novels by Robert Jordan. Let me make sure I get this right. Yeah, there's this series of novels. Let me make sure. How many are there? Sorry. There's this series of books that by Robert Jordan called The Wheel of Time. And after Robert Jordan died, Brandon Sanderson completed them. It's their epic fantasy books. It's called The Wheel of Time. And there was this series of TV series on Prime Video based on the books. Now, that series, in terms of being faithful to the books, is not what's I guess the polite way to say it was being not fully accurate to the novels, and a lot of people were really, it pissed off a lot of people. But it's this beloved series of books, and then Prime Video did the series. Excuse me. Wow. And the Prime Video series wasn't very faithful to the book, and it was canceled. I want to make sure I get this right. It was canceled after three seasons. Due to the high production costs and the high production costs not matching the viewership numbers. The series was canceled, and it's probably a good thing that it was canceled anyway, because it wasn't very faithful to the books. Well, there has been an announcement regarding the future of the Wheel of Time as far as adaptations are concerned. This article is on CBR, published by Jamie Levitt. Now, this article was published on March 19th. So, this article says, the Wheel of Time is back and in a new form. iwot Studios, which owns the rights to Robert Jordan's beloved fantasy novels, announced that it is working on a new The Wheel of Time animated series, feature films, and a video game. The company is partnering with Thomas Wu, who worked on the hit Netflix animated series Arcane and the video game upon which that show was based, Riot Games' League of Legends. Let's see here. iwot Studios CEO Rick Selvage and Chief Operating Officer Larry Mondrigan are spearheading the revival after producing The Wheel of Time, a live-action series that ran for 3 seasons before Prime Video canceled it. Together with Wu and Initiate Entertainment's Anthony Borquez, the group is planning animated feature films, an animated series, and a video game all set in the world of The Wheel of Time. Let me look up something before I continue. So let me just continue this article here because I find this troubling. The article does go on to say that this reimagining, this reboot, is trying something different, aiming at a younger audience to make the public more familiar with the IP. Okay. So, this concerns me on several levels. First of all, the books are amazing. They're very complex. They have mature thematic elements and they have politics woven into them in very intricate ways. Now, I say all that because it bothers me that this article says that these projects are going to be targeting a young audience. You know, oh, let's appeal to the kids because then we'll get more of an audience. No, the books are mainly for adults, or mainly geared towards adults because of how complex they are. So, adapting the books adapting a books now and have it geared more towards children is not a very good idea. Now, the other thing that bothers me about this is the same people who who produced the Prime Video series, are going to be in charge of this shift in strategy, gearing it towards, kids. And it's just like, okay, can't you just read the books and adapt the books? Don't change anything like you fucking did with the Prime Video show. Those were not faithful to the books at all. And don't make it for children. Make it for fans of the genre. Make it for fantasy fans. And adapt the books. It's not that hard of a concept to understand. The other issue that I have with this is like they're planning an animated feature. They're planning animated feature films, an animated series, and a video game. Mike Tyson once said everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. Don't put the cart before the horse. You got this plan to do animated series, feature films, video games. Let's just focus on one thing at a time here, just in case it goes down the shitter. I don't have much faith in this for all these reasons. I couldn't even watch the Prime Video show. I couldn't even watch it. Like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, I don't know what this is, but it ain't the Wheel of Time. So, I don't have much faith in this. It feels like, let's try a completely other different way to go than the last time. And it's just like, okay, you got the tone right for the Prime Video show, but you weren't faithful to the material. Now let's just make it for kids because, let's brighten it up for the kids. Yay! And it's just like, no, don't do that. Just, I don't know. This is, I think this is wrong-headed. I think this is, I think this is wrong-headed. I think this is a mistake, and I don't think it's going to go well. I think it's going to end up being worse than the Prime Video series. But anyway, jump in the comments and let me know your thoughts. Do you think I'm wrong? What do you guys think? All right, so one more bit of news, one last bit of news today. And it has to, so, I understand. Well, let me just get into it here. So there's this new comedy coming from one of my favorite filmmakers, Judd Apatow. This article is on Variety, published by Ethan Schanfeld. Stavros Halkias has joined the cast of Glenn Powell's upcoming comedy movie about a country music star in Freefall, directed by Judd Apatow. Sources tell Variety the comedian and Bugonia star will play Powell's character's agent in the Untitled film, which will premiere on February 5th, 2027 via Universal Pictures. It will be directed by Judd Apatow, who co-wrote the script with Powell. Okay. So, you know, Judd Apatow. So first of all, Stavros Halkias or Halkias was in Begonia with Emma Stone, and I need to see it because it looks fantastic. Sorry about my camera. Judd Apatow is one of my favorite filmmakers. He's had a couple of misses. He did this movie called This Is 40, which wasn't very good. And then he did this movie, I think, a couple of years ago, called The Bubble. It's terrible. It's terrible. Now, he did direct, Judd Apatow, he did Trainwreck. He did The King of Staten Island. Knocked Up. And The 40-Year-Old Virgin. And Funny People. Knocked Up and you know, those last three that I mentioned, Funny People, 40-Year-Old Virgin, and Knocked Up, they're hilarious. They're great films. And The King of Staten Island is great too. Trainwreck is great. But he's had a couple of stickers. But to me, the films that he's done that are good outweigh the two movies that he's done that are not so good. Now, Glenn Powell. He seems like a decent guy. He seems like a very likable guy. He needs a hit. He needs a hit. Because the last two movies that he was in the remake of The Running Man, and he was in this kind of dark comedy called How to Make a Killing. Neither one of those, both those movies flopped financially at the box office. I have no doubt that he's a nice guy and that he seems like a very likable person. But I just don't know. He needs a hit, and I think he needs to be in something that audiences are interested in seeing. And what's interesting, and I'm not just saying this because of this topic. The industry is a lot different from what it used to be in many ways, and one of those ways is, the day of the movie star is dead. People go to the movies now. People don't go to the movies now just because someone they like is in it. They go to see a movie based on whether or not it looks good to them. And unfortunately, the last couple of movies that Glenn Powell has been in, audiences chose to say, no thank you. I think, like, how long ago was Twisters? the sequel to Twister. How long ago was that? 2024. And let me see here. And that movie, it got good reviews. You know, but in terms of Glenn Powell needs a critical and financial hit. He needs to be in a movie, and I'm sitting here like I don't know what that movie is, but he needs to do something that fans are going to be interested in seeing. And I'm saying, like, The Running Man and How to Make a Killing, those are movies that I'm interested in seeing. But he needs to be like in a 4-quadrant movie. By that I mean, like, he needs to be in a movie that everybody's interested in. Because the day the movie star is dead, people are going to go, just because people are now interested in seeing movies. Like, if it doesn't look good, I'm not going to see it. That's the consensus of people, of film audiences. And that's been the consensus for a while now. Is like, just because just because you're a big name in the industry doesn't mean that I'm going to go see your movie. You know, unless you're Tom Cruise. And even he is starting to struggle. It's weird to say that about Tom Cruise, that he's starting to struggle a little bit. You know, and again, I don't know what that movie is, but Glenn Powell needs a hit. You know, now, I love Judd Apatow as a director, and this idea of him playing a country music star in Freefall. That's under the direction of a Judd Apatow. I think that could be funny and, you know, charming. I think we as film audiences need, I think the star power of Glenn Powell needs to start being questioned, however. Because if my math is right, Twisters lost money too. I don't know what that is. I don't, you know, if my math is right. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to see this movie because Judd Apatow is directing it. Glenn Powell is not necessarily the reason I am interested in this movie. And like I said, the last two movies that he's been in, The Running Man and How to Make a Killing, I can say that I personally was interested in those movies. I personally am interested in seeing them. But I don't know that anybody else was. Financially, it was shown that, generally speaking, film audiences were not interested in seeing those films. So Glenn Powell needs a hit. He needs to be in a movie that everyone is interested in seeing. I don't know what that movie is. If I knew, I would tell you, and I would make it myself. So I just wanted to talk about that. I think he's a solid actor. And so we'll see. Doing a film like this with Judd Apatow, it's certainly gonna get attention, and hopefully it'll be the good kind of attention. I don't know. We'll see. This sounds good to me. This sounds like the right. This sounds like a good combination. Judd Apatow and Glenn Powell. What do you guys think? Jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts. Well, folks, that'll about do it for today. That's 2 episodes, which I wanted to do. But I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I hope it didn't bore you. I hope it didn't talk too long. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to do. That's the reason why I wanted to do 2 separate shows today. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I hope you guys enjoyed the last episode. And I hope you guys continue to enjoy the show in the future. I will be back probably on Sunday. I won't be back any earlier than Sunday. I'll be back either Sunday or Tuesday or Wednesday, sometime next week. Probably Sunday. But yeah, so until then, like I said last time, my sister, my wife, and I are going to go see Project Hail Mary on Saturday night, which I'm very excited for. I cannot wait. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I hope everyone out there is doing okay. I hope you're doing well. And until next time, I will see you at the movies.